chair, they have 4 presenters. They are doing, they will figure out the way to do. And then we have 2 discussants, and afterward, hopefully we still have time and Q&A in the end. Okay, I think Rob, you want to take over from your side, and then if you want you just remind the tech typical sleep your flight. Just next slide, they will flip the slide. The tech, can you put the slides on, Rob? Please open your camera too.
Yeah, thank you, Liang. I hope everybody can see me and hear me well. It's my pleasure to
I think it's
start off this presentation. My name is Rob Voss. I'm the Director of Markets, Trade and Institutions at IFPRI, and also coordinator of the Food Security Portal. We're very happy to present a set of the tools that are developed under the Food Security Portal, which, as Liang said, started in 2010 in the aftermath of the 2007-08 global food price crisis, and there was another one around that time, 2010 and 11. The Food Security Portal is, thank you, now we can see it all. If we go to the next slide, please. So the portal was mainly set up, as Liang already mentioned, to provide governments and researchers with tools to rapidly assess the impacts of shocks emanating from global markets, or be it weather shocks, economic shocks, and what they mean for incomes and livelihoods of people. We also wanted to develop tools that can better inform policies and programs to respond to risks of food crisis, and what are the opportunities to respond to them. Also, the tool was set up to enable cross-country learning and dialogues about awareness of how to be prepared for food price shocks, and as we moved further along over time to other shocks and risks that could affect food security and livelihoods around the world. So those are among the first main objectives, but more specific objectives that have emerged over time is to provide a true hub for early warning systems and also early action systems in response to food crisis risks. And at the same time, also provide easy access to data and tools to inform researchers and decision-making about trends of food security and nutrition, and to analyze the determinants of those trends, including impacts from global shocks. So for this also, we've developed now, with the support from the Asian Development Bank, an Asia and the Pacific Food Security Portal, which is part of a suite of portals. We have the global portal, there's Sub-Saharan Africa portal, both in English and in French, and as I said, now also the Asian Pacific Food Security Portal. Here on the left-hand side, you have the opening page, and we'll show a bit later on the link to access the portal, which is already live with a number of features which we put in place over the past 3 months. We go to the next slide. So as mentioned, it started with the global food price crisis 2007-2008, and at the time the main concern was not only with the rising food prices in international markets, but especially also with the volatility in the prices. So for that, the Food Security Portal developed a tool, or a model, if you like, to assess the volatility in markets. And this tool, here we show, has developed into an early warning system for the major crops around the world, both staple food crops and cash crops. And it provides a warning of the degree of volatility, in this case, the excessive volatility beyond the normal volatility as measured in futures commodity markets. So what it expresses here in the tool is how many days of excessive volatility have we seen over the past couple of months. We've seen in particular the cocoa and coffee markets in very high volatility. Cocoa, as one example, is affected by droughts, particularly in major cocoa producing countries in West Africa, which is affecting, as a droughts, but also excessive waterfall in rainfall, I should say, in those countries. That is affecting the production, driving up prices, but above all, driving up the volatility in those prices. So this tool serves as an early warning, also not just for rising prices, but particularly for the volatility in markets. And by taking the volatility in futures markets, we know that will be a harbinger for volatility to come in spot markets as well. So for instance, also with the war in Ukraine, there was already quite a bit of uncertainty in markets months before, so we could detect through this excessive food price volatility tool that markets for hard and soft wheat were in very high volatility. It is not shown at the moment, but in the months before the invasion of the Ukraine, we already saw volatility and uncertainty in markets. So this is one example of the tools that we have, and this tool will also feature on the Asia Food Security Portal. We go to the next slide, please. So what we'll do in this morning's, but for you this afternoon's presentation, is to showcase a couple of the tools that are on the Asia Pacific Food Security Portal available and tailored to the needs of Asia and the Pacific. So we'll start out with the Food Security and Nutrition Indicators dashboard by my colleague Brendan Rice. Sunil Kim will then present the Food Price Monitor that integrates both international and domestic price trends as well as determinants of price trends. Brendan again will then present a food price shock tool that showcases how specific shocks to food markets by commodity can have an impact on poverty and food insecurity. And then followed by Abdullah Mamoun, who will present to you the Food and Fertilizer Trade Restrictions Tracker to assess the degree to which trade restrictions are affecting food markets. Then I will end with the dashboard on food import vulnerability. So those are the 5 presentations that will follow from here on, but just as a showcase how these can be used for the analysis of food risks and also for the analysis of responses to those food crisis risks. So with that, let me give the floor to Brendan to start with the first dashboard, the Food Security and Nutrition Indicators dashboard. Over to you, Brendan.
Good afternoon. Yes, as Rob mentioned, I would like to share with you the Food Security and Nutrition Indicators dashboard. And if you can go to the next slide, please. This is a dashboard that essentially just visualizes FAO and IPC data on chronic food insecurity, acute food insecurity, and provides some ability to compare 2 indicators. And so going to the next slide. So yes, you can select from a number of various indicators under chronic and acute food insecurity. And we also provide the ability to look into some associations between indicators, for example, looking into the relationship between some measures of chronic and acute food insecurity. This is a brief overview as it's visualizing the data that are there. So I'll hand it over to my colleagues for the next slide, but I encourage you to check it out and on your own time on the Food Security Portal for the region.
Thank you, Brandon. Hi, my name is Soon-Ho Kim, a Senior Data Manager at IFRI. I'm very glad to introduce a food price monitor. Next slide, please. So the International Food Price Monitor dashboard, which Rob mentioned before, to provide commodity prices to the international level, and then we have a composite food price index from the FAO and International Grain Council, and then we have a simple form of price volatility. As you see here in the graph, this is a rice data. So we show the international price of rice. This one is show the futures daily price, and then also you can choose spot price of the rice in the left side of menu. Next slide, please. So this one is another one, is a domestic food price monitor specialized for Asia and the Pacific. Domestic price section has wholesale and retail prices. Those prices are from the FAO Food Price Monitor and Analysis tool. This is monthly data, and then it goes to local market in the country. So you have a lot of price series there. And then the another things I'd like to highlight here is that consumer price index, which you show in the graph map right now. So this is to show the food inflation rate on January this year. As you see here, the Mongolia and then Pakistan and then Laos has more than 10% of food inflation. Next slide, please. So this is a determinant which show like which factor that influence the food prices. So in determinant, you can see the price transmission that we have been studied a long time, and then you can see some of the how price trends from the global level to in the local market. And then the second one is the exchange rate, and then third one is the inflation measure. So we show the policy impact such as nominal rate of protection in this section, and then we also show the input prices. For example, the oil and energies, you can see right now in the left side, and then input price of fertilizer. And then we have a vulnerability analysis that Rob will present at the end of this session. Next one, please. So this is another dashboard showing the high frequency domestic price data. We collect the India price data with local markets, more than 2,000 markets in India from the Indian government website. And then we analyze this data through the different time, and then we can show some of the traffic sign of each commodity and each market. For example, this one shows the tomatoes in the Indian, local market in India, and then if the red dot means that it's a high increase over the 15% from the reference price. Thank you. This one is Nepal Food Security Dashboard, which is funded by USAID. This one gives us some idea how we can potentially extend our coverage of Asia and the Pacific food security border. So for example, this dashboard shows some of the food prices, seasonality, map, crop calendar, food commodities, and bulletin. And then especially in here, in the right side, you can see the food prices section. The food price section show like nominal prices and their index, and then real prices and index. So as you see here, in the market in the rice, in the Nepal, it's like show some kind of trend is going a little bit up. Next slide, please. So thanks so much for given time to introduce the tool. And then next is Brandon to introduce the food price shock tool. Over to you, Brandon.
Thank you, Soon-Ho. Yes, we have one tool called the impacts of food price shocks on poverty. And this is research based on Will Martin, a senior research fellow in IFPRI. As Rob mentioned, the framing of the food security portal, at least from the start, was with the food price crisis of 08 and 09. And this tool allows you to look into what such global price shocks mean for poverty in a short-term time period. So how does it work? You can set the price shock on the left for a number of commodities and a number of countries that you see from the drop down. And then poverty, the impacts of poverty are generated per household and automatically calculated and shown in the tool. So the one way to frame how this tool works is whether the gains of net selling households are large enough to offset the losses of poor net buying households in a given country. As I mentioned, this is really about looking into short-term impacts of an exogenous price shock on the country, and it's about first-order impacts of food price changes. A little bit more about the methodology, again, going off of the paper of Will Martin, is it's basically a matrix of net sales where the columns are the various commodities and the rows are households. And that matrix is multiplied by a vector of price shocks. And then to have a sort of vector of net impacts per commodity. And based on that, real income level is calculated after the change in food prices. And then the change in household real incomes is calculated, and you can see the impact on poverty. So basically, household impacts from that vector of net impacts are accumulated to see the impact on poverty. This tool is based on household survey data. So of course, the more recent the data are, the more useful. If it's a bit older, then the sort of makeup of the country in terms of net sellers or net buyers of a commodity might have changed. But it's an interesting tool to just to explore and see. Okay, if a price shock were to occur in rice, for example, what might we see in poverty, with some assumptions, of course, in a given country in the short term. So moving to the next slide, we can see one example of this, which is in Bangladesh. And my colleague Abdullah will later introduce. We'll later look into rice a bit further. So I pulled from his presentation about let's say we have about a 15% price shock in rice. The short-term impact in Bangladesh is noticeable. The 0.77 percentage point change in the poverty rate. And you can go to the portal and select it from a number of countries and play around with the various price shocks to see the short-term impacts. Thank you.
Thank you, Brandon. Let me introduce the Food and Fertilizer Export Restriction Tracker that we manage to track and monitor globally what is happening in the food and fertilizer market and which countries are imposing the different types of export restrictions, such as ban, taxes, or licensing. Next slide, please. So this is a tracker that originally developed by David Laward, who is now at FAO. So, and we have been monitoring and we have been curating this food and fertilizer export restriction tracker since COVID-19. But we also had populated the data from the 2007-8 food price crisis. So how this food and fertilizer export restrictions tracker works and who are the users of this tracker? So if you see, I mean, we have seen that various international organizations such as FAO, WP, or WTO, and other organizations like USAID, they are the users of this tracker. But also we collect the data from their side, like from the FAO. We get the information that which countries are imposing different types of export restriction. There are a wide range of non-academic users who also happen to monitor and see that the export restriction tracker. We update this tracker on a weekly basis, but our issue currently is that we monitor frequently of the export restriction activities happening globally, but it is also difficult to know the phase out of these measures sometimes. So we had to gather information from the news sources of either from online or from the different newspaper sites. Next slide, please. So how do we collect the data? Every day we search for either to Google search. We receive Google alerts from that gives us the information on news, anything about export restriction. We collect that. We also collect information from the news API. That gives us news in different local languages or national languages. We translate that in our language in English, and we collect and we gather information. And if we find anything related to export restriction, we try to verify that. The tracker also allows you to use some analytics. We provide some analytics based on the stock and production data we gather from USDA. We also collect and gather, analyze information on trade in micronutrient databases plus the trade in fertilizer nutrient database. So the tracker gives you not only the export restriction activities, like the start date and the end date if you find it, and the types of commodities or the commodity code with the source and link, but it also will give you the information on how much the trade is blocked. Like it gives you indication of the food insecurity to the different countries, importing countries, the what percent or what share of calorie intake is currently blocked. So this is where you can see that if anyone wants to download the export restriction, the list of export restriction currently active or inactive, they can easily download from the dashboard. Next slide, please. So the dashboard, once you enter the dashboard, this is the landing page. You can see where there is a global map. You can look at which countries and what percent of or what share of export is currently blocked by different countries at the aggregate level. But also you can, on the right-hand side panel, you can see that the total share of calorie intake are blocked by different types of export restrictions, such as ban, taxes, or licensing. Next slide, please. So who is impacted by these export restriction activities? You can clearly see that the least developed countries are highly impacted over all this crisis period, such as 2007, 8, 2020, and COVID-19, and the Russia-Ukraine during the current Russia-Ukraine war. They are the countries in the least developed countries highly impacted over all these episodes. But also the developing countries, net food importers, they are also highly impacted by this export restriction. Not so much by the developed countries. Okay, so my presentation has two parts. I presented my food and export restriction tracker. In this part, I would like to focus on the recent set of export restrictions that imposed by India on different varieties of rice. Initially, India implemented the export ban on broken rice in September 2022, but in July 2023, they imposed a major ban on non-basmati white rice, excluding parboiled. which makes the rice market much volatile after this announcement. Not so much from the September 2022 export ban compared to the non-basmati, because that is the non-basmati white rice, excluding parboil. That is the major export item which India exports to the globally. As you can see, previous slide, please. As you can see clearly that after this export restriction, the broken rice and the non-basmati rice since July has been almost wiped out or reduced to significantly. Not so much parboiled rice, even though there is export taxes on parboiled rice, and basmati rice even increased, but the major item, which is around, like, if I take the 2022 number, where India exported like 22 million tons of rice, this broken rice and non-basmati rice, they together accounted for like 10 million tons of rice. So currently, only the small amount of non-basmati white rice is exported, and broken rice is almost not being exported by India. Next slide, please. So, which regions are affected? You can see clearly the countries in Asia, Eastern Asia or South Asia, they are not getting enough rices from India currently. If I take the just last 3 months or 4 months number, it is also severely impacting the countries in Africa, because India is the major source of import for rice for most of the African countries and also the countries in Asia. Next slide, please. Now, I discussed the trade effect of the export restriction, but now look at the price effect of selected countries in Asia. Clearly, Nepal, Sri Lanka are having high rice price volatility. Almost like if I compare since the July introduction of the export restriction in July, Nepal had like 35% increase in the coarse rice domestically. Sri Lanka is having almost like 16% of price increase since July 2023. Not so much Bangladesh or Pakistan, but recently Bangladesh is also having the price increase in rice. If I take the data in February, March, we see like around 10 to 15% rise in coarse rices. Pakistan is not that dependent on, they're actually the major exporter of rice, but still they are also seeing the price increase in domestically. Next slide, please. Now, India, the largest exporter in the world, interestingly, this is a case where they put the export ban on all different types of export restriction on different types of rices. But what happens to their domestic market? Clearly, this graph shows that the wholesale rice price is going up and up since July 2023. I mean, if we just consider after the introduction. So this is not helping also India to contain or to insulate the wholesale rice prices domestically. So this is the scenario currently. We see the rice prices in some selected countries in Asia. But also I can attest that this is the spiraling, the effect is also being felt in other countries of Asia. So with that, I conclude my presentation. Thank you. I hand over to Rob.
Thank you, Abdullah. We go to the next slide. So we'll close out our set of presentations, starting with the vulnerability index, the vulnerability to food import price shocks. Can't see the next slide, but I would like to showcase the tool. Can people see the next slide?
Yeah. Rob, you can just you can just continue speaking. I think
okay,
they will come.
You can see it?
Yeah. No,
yeah?
we will. I'm not yet.
Okay, good. Anyway, so this vulnerability index, or more completely the food import vulnerability index, we've developed in response to the exposure to wheat imports dependence in the aftermath of the Ukraine and Russia war. And that focused particularly on the dependence on wheat and fertilizer imports. And so we calculated an index to show that dependence, to specifically to the vulnerability to imports from the Black Sea region. So subsequently, when there was a major concern with the wheat and fertilizer exports, and not just the export from the region itself, but also export restrictions that were imposed subsequently. Then most of the restrictions were lifted, but also the concern was that more broadly countries were exposed to vulnerability to import price shocks. So subsequently, we've developed a more generalized tool to give a quick entry point into assessing which countries are most vulnerable in terms of not just the imports of food, but also import dependence on food, but also how much that matters to food consumption, whether expressed in calories, as well as countries that are already facing significant food insecurity as the most vulnerable. So we've developed that tool that's now also live on the Asia Food Security portal that allows you to assess the vulnerabilities across countries for a very broad range of staple foods. So go to the next slide, please. And there's the definition of the index. It's in a way it's fairly simple, but innovative in the sense of actually focusing on the food insecurity vulnerability in the end of the day. So what it calculates is the share of a particular commodity in the calorie intake in each country context. Then we take the net imports as a share of domestic consumption, and subsequently we look at the population experiencing moderate or severe food insecurity along the food insecurity experience scale data as published by FAO. So that leads to a fairly simple index where these three components are multiplicative components, and we use equal weights for each component in the case of the commodity level food import dependence. If we go please to the previous slide still. So it shows here we give equal weights to each component, but we've done sensitivity analysis whether it matters in terms of ranking of degrees of vulnerability across countries, and those rankings don't change very much or very little actually if we use different weights. So it shows fairly the robustness of this indicator. Then likewise at the national level, where we combine all the staple foods into one aggregate commodity, and then look also at the import dependence of these commodities. So we get to a two-dimension index which has that component and then multiplied by the moderate and severe food insecurity index. Again, there, changing the weights from equal weights to differential weights it stays robust. So we kept it in this simple formulation. Now, if you go to the next slide, as we've seen is that over the past year and a half or so, we've seen international food prices decline, but domestic inflation remains high in quite a range of countries. So that is first to the index one should use also not just looking at what happens to international prices, but subsequently also link that to the domestic price inflation. These are also components of the food security portal as also presented by Suno. Go to the next slide. So going back to the vulnerability index, what we want to show here is the international price of Thai white rice, broken rice, which increased significantly from the second quarter of last year. It has come up and down, but it's still way above the pre-Ukraine war levels. And as Abdullah has explained, a lot of that also has to do with the food restriction, or the export restrictions on rice as imposed by India, but also by other factors. So in this case, we want to know which countries in Asia are most vulnerable to these rice price shocks. If we go to the next slide, using the index, then we can look at this map, and we find, of course, since Asia are big producers of rice, and many of them also are net exporters of rice, the vulnerability in most countries is not very high, but those countries that do have very high vulnerability because of the high degree of rice consumption, the high degree of import dependence, and already high food insecurity. Here are countries like Bhutan, the Pacific Islands, Vanuatu, Solomon Islands, but also Papua New Guinea and Timor-Leste among the main vulnerable countries. More globally, the most affected countries by the increase in international rice prices are low-income countries in East and West Africa that can partially also be seen in the left part of the map. But the idea of the tool is just to give a quick insight in the degrees of vulnerability. And as we did with the Ukraine crisis subsequently, looking at the most vulnerable cases, okay, what are the further dimensions that one should look at in order to understand the degrees of vulnerability and possible impacts on food insecurity and poverty. We go to the next slide. That brings me to the end of our presentation. We go one slide further. We've presented 5 of the tools that have gone live. We're fine-tuning a number of them for the case of Asia and the Pacific. And we'll use alerts and findings based on the tools to events that have taken place in global markets and assess the impacts on food security and poverty. Then we will further develop further tools, the food and fertilizer export tracker, that export restrictions tracker that will fine-tune also further for the region. We'll also include a production and stocks monitor and importantly also an acute food insecurity early warning mechanism on the Asian Pacific portal. And then we further will look into other regional early warning systems that we can put under the food security portal. And lastly, as Suno showed, we are also open to collaborate in developing specific country pages like the one we've developed for Nepal, and that could be done for other countries as well, should there be interest. All right, with that, we close this set of presentation. We go to the last slide, so just to give you here also the link, so feel free to access the portal, and please also provide us with feedback on what you find. Maybe also, that's also important to us, to get comments and feedback of any mistakes we can make, or any contributions that you would like to make to the Pacific Food Security Portal. So with that, thank you all very much for your attention, and we look forward to the further discussion.
Thank you. Thank you. We give the round of applause. Thank you, President. As I want to use this music chair, just music chair. I hope it's not so confused, but don't worry, we actually have two discussants. Easily bring all this home, literally, they are here, home. So maybe I can come, Samanya Nigandi, right, who is Asian Food Security Information System Manager. So hopefully she can really bring that things into. Yeah, you can come here, I think. That's fine. Yeah. Wait a minute.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. First of all, on behalf of AFSIS, ASEAN Food Security Information System, I would like to share from my perspective. First of all, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to share and give the comment for your comprehensive presentations. When we see about this platform, as we are well aware, high quality data and their accurate analysis are essential to the people or to the user, decide, monitor, and evaluate the effective food security in nutrition policy as well. From your presentations and the function that of the portal, I think this is a food security portal. I ensure this platform is developed very well in terms of the structure, data quality, timeliness, and relevance. The food security portal is a technical platform, I think, and that provides key data to monitor and monitor the situation of food price as well. But for my perspective, I think it's a little bit technical. The persons who will use this platform have to understand the characteristic of the data, and I think it is quite complicated. But however, if we put more about the capacity building or manual or practice, the person who would like to use this, or maybe have some example of the video or manual to explain about the function, I think it is very useful. I think this portal is play a role in supporting effective about the people for decision making and helping policymaker and the other user find the appropriate timely response to address food insecurity at the country level. As far as I'm concerned, I think about the utilization is more important. The user or the policymaker have to be aware of the existence and relevance of such the data and information to use properly. In addition to this, I think we should, after we open the platform to the user, we should be an evaluation of the use of the data, that the information received meet the need or not. And for the this is my personal perspective for the Thai people, because I'm from Thailand. So I think this platform mentioned they have a French, English, and if I think about the Thai people, I think maybe we have a limitations of the English. So if have some tool or some functions that is not make the developer to be too much busy, can develop in different language, I think it will be more useful for the user. Okay, and actually, I found one the data. I think I cannot remember what the number of the slide, but the country most the rich in Asia Pacific that representative like a map. I think have some data that mentioned maybe the percentage. You the different color, but mention the percentage at the same. So maybe if the developer or who will recheck about the data, maybe have to check again. So this is my comment, but it's very useful. Thank you very much.
Our next discussant is Shingo Kimura, who is the principal natural resource agriculture specialist. But for this conference, also he is the architecture and chief operation officer of the whole forum. So hopefully you have final word. Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Nancy, and thank you everyone staying. That this is the last session of the forum, and but this is very important issue. I think it's even it's the last session. We shouldn't miss this opportunity. And also very much thank you for IFPRI team, Rob and Brendan, Song Ho and Abdul, waking up so early in Washington DC, 4 a.m. Joining this forum. Really appreciate everyone's effort. I think this presentation is very, very impressive, and we are very, very happy that this ADB can support the development of this Asia-Pacific Food Security Information Portal. I have a couple of comments. I think it's, I would also like to echo Ms. Maya that I think this portal is, of course, by definition, it's a very comprehensive data source, set of data, and even very useful analytical tools. But I think someone need to digest and somehow need to have some reporting mechanism. For example, at ADB, when we had this food security crisis in the last few years, we are regularly reporting to the ADB management on food security tracker. Just one page note, what's the major news, what's the major concern that the management level people need to be concerned. We're also doing this in several countries. I know we are doing this exercise in Pakistan and somewhere. That's kind of a very short reporting, 1 or 2 pages to the policymakers and decision makers. That has been very, very useful. So I understand there will be some dashboard, but I think we are very much happy to work with you that what would be the best way, what would be the best reporting mechanism to collect useful informations and to serve as an early warning system. I think we have a very good opportunity. And also, in the region, we have someone like AFSIS, others, also after colleagues, also working regularly collecting this similar data. So I think I see a very big scope of collaborating with all of the institutions in Asia to have some sort of, really a de facto portal so that everyone can rely on. But in order to rely on this portal, we also have to make sure the sustainability of this mechanism, and then of course it applied to AFSIS as well. When the food crisis happened, then there's a big motivation to create information portal. But as time goes by, somehow the interest goes down, and even I understand AMIS was also in the crisis. Agriculture Market Information System was also in the crisis of running out of funding. So so there's a sort of trade-off between having a very comprehensive database and also the long-term sustainability. So I'm also curious about your experience of making this exercise most sustainable long term. I think it's continuing itself has a big value. You don't know when the crisis will come again, and then when we need it, if we don't have the information, that's a big problem. So we like to make sure that everything we do will be sustainable. So and then, collaboration with these different institutions in Asia probably will help and reduce everyone's cost and to maintain. And also related to the sustainability, also want to see how much kind of regularly you collecting data or any way to reduce because all the data are in a different format and then released daily, monthly, and then quarterly, and different institutions, or any insight or experience of this collecting this large set of database will be very useful for our colleague in this room. So that's also want to ask the IFPRI colleague. But really appreciate your effort, and we're really looking forward to working with you to develop very useful information for that is benefit everyone in the region. Yeah, thank you.
Yes, please. Rob, I think, can you, before I open the floor to the audience, the Q&A, can you just briefly respond to the two discussions? I don't know, you can handle who is going to respond to what.
Yeah, no, thanks very much, first for the appreciation, but also for the comments made and the feedback that you provided. Just on one of the first comments was maybe it's the portal is a bit too technical. To introduce, we do have a number of introductory videos, for instance, for the excessive food price volatility index and the model behind that, how to use that. But the points are well taken. We maybe it would be useful to provide a little bit more of a guide how to navigate the portal, since it has so many different dimensions. We do have, if you go to the website, you see a lot more usefulness of the tools. If you scroll over maps, you can always see the numbers that belong to each country and to the relevant indicators. So that's all there. So just explore it a little bit more to see the usefulness. On Shingo's points, yeah, I think it's good to look more maybe systematically at how the portal could report better on the key findings. What we do have for a number of the tools and dashboards, the monitoring or reporting mechanisms that typically is monthly, where it comes to summaries of what has happened in terms of export restrictions and its implications. We also have a monthly report for the fertilizer market developments. Also, that's an input to the agricultural market information system of the G20 that we produce every month, and also that's replicated on the food security portal. So it could be that kind of mechanisms, that kind of mechanism of reporting that could be useful for many users. The other ways that we felt useful, and I think we've got a lot of attention, is to write blogs on specific events and trends that we found in markets to inform the users of the portal. But we're happy to discuss it further. Then on the last two points, sustainability. Yeah, let me just emphasize first, and that's also discussions with funders of the global portal that we've had to showcase the importance of having a mechanism as the food security portal in place, no matter whether it's a crisis or not, is critical. Because you cannot develop this once there's a crisis, because then all the data that is needed only comes once the crisis has already happened and has already wreaked havoc in markets or on food insecurity. So this is, yeah, should take it as global public good, but of course its sustainability depends on how useful people find it. So that's also why we've developed a lot of tools that originally were very specific to a crisis, like what I mentioned before. The vulnerability index was very specific to the Ukraine and Russia war and its impact on wheat markets and fertilizer markets. But for that reason, for the reason I just explained, we've developed it into a more general tool that could be used in any moment or any shock to food commodities. But certainly that's something that one should be aware of, and that these mechanisms don't fall apart after the crisis has subsided, and then you have to rebuild it again once a new crisis is emerging. And lastly, on the frequency of collecting data, so we've increasingly are using we call APIs and other mechanisms to stream data and read it immediately. So for instance, the excessive food price volatility index is updated on a daily basis. So we have daily market information that then feeds into the model. The model runs every day, and then we validate the outcomes of the model, and then it goes onto the portal. So that's the kind of mechanisms that eases the frequent updating, and in some cases that's become increasingly easy to do. In other cases, that's still complicated by the way the numbers come, but that's also what Food Security Portal is for, to put things in formats that are then subsequently easy usable for our readership and user community of the Food Security Portal. Back to you, Jan.
Okay, thank you so much. Now we open the floor to the audience, and then the on-site, and then can you come over there, and then you remember also the online audience, you can also open your mic. I think you also ask questions. Okay, maybe take a few things.
So good afternoon. Actually, I'm riffing off on what Sumanya said and even alluded by Shingo. We have kind of an embarrassment of food security information, right? So we have this system. I get this update in my email virtually every week or so. There's the AMIS mentioned by Shingo. There's the food, the FAO itself, and now there's the food system dashboard. After the UN started the big discussion on food security, food systems, etc. I can probably keep on rattling off. And the people who actually make decisions, like policymakers and investors, they have no time to go through this. So I'm wondering whether some resources might also be needed to develop, and perhaps they're already there, maybe I'm just ignorant, a cadre of analysts who can absorb all of this information, digest. So it's nice to let 1,000 flowers bloom, right? But how do you curate all of this in a way that can be useful to the ones that are actually making the decisions on food vouchers, policies, funding, climate adaptation, and so on?
Thank you. Rob, I will throw this to you first, and then Shingo can prepare. I think maybe you can answer part of the question. Rob, I go to you first, or you can dedicate. Okay, I'll just use Rob, but the whole team. Okay, whatever.
Yeah, well, let me take this on first. So I like the expression, the embarrassment of richness in terms of information, but also of dashboards. So we've actually recently done, a couple of months ago, we did a comparison of the different food insecurity related portals or dashboards that are around. And what we found, that what distinguishes the food security portal is that it's not just a portal that provides data and information, but provides these analytical tools. And that's been the main focus from the start, is to provide the users with actually tools that can show you the impacts of certain trends that you see. So the food price impact tool that Brendan, for instance, presented is one good example. Very simple tool, but through which you can say, well, if we look at, right, because prices go up and down, and so if you want to know whether it really matters, right, so that tool can give you very quick insight whether in a specific country that is going to make a major difference to food insecurity and poverty in that country or not, before we start being too concerned or not about that development. So I think that's a distinguishing feature of the Food Security Portal, and so that we've been trying to do in different domains. So it's truly bringing things together, not just as a hub of information, but particularly as a combination of monitoring tools and analytical tools to help you move forward. So, but otherwise, the point is well taken on, okay, how can we bring this in a more accessible way, particularly analytical components of it, to a broader user group of users that we aim to reach with the portal.
Shingo, can I just
I'm not sure whether Sunho or somebody else
more
wants
on
to
the
jump in.
on the investment and what the kind of action side, maybe from your side, ADB or whatever.
But anyway, I also I agree with the Herrera. I also receive every day rice update and AMS and then food security dashboard and so on. So I understand this exercise. I mean, every exercise is very much rely on the those primary data. I don't think every colleague is creating another primary data, right? And so that's, I think, the beauty of this exercise, and even adding value, creating some, adding analytical too. So that's, I really like this aspect. But on the other hand, as I emphasized, I think it's very good to have some nice reporting mechanism. Of course, it require feedback from us and of course our stakeholder in the room. To decision makers. I think if it's analyst, they can go to the primary data, and then if I'm asked about the rice price from our management, I go to really FAO rice price index, and doesn't go to this portal because I know where the information is. Yeah. But the value of having this is, someone who don't have where the data is, but you need some comprehensive mapping and picture of the available and updated data. So there's a balance that if data is not updated, the value will be lost. So that's also a caveat I want to add. And if Ms. Maya want to add something.
Yeah. You want to say something? Yeah, go ahead.
After we discuss about the analytic or data analysis, I just want to know about this platform or this portal have a scenario analysis or not. Because I think if they have the model or scenario analysis, I think it's very useful because it's not only for decision making, but they can make a plan or find a solution by scenario if they can. For us, I think we not have the capacity about to do like this, but however, we will use this platform.
There was an idea.
Okay. I just remind this online audience, you can raise your hand. It seems like we are hybrid, so I don't want your guys don't feel interact. Anybody from the room? Again, I didn't see anything online. Yeah. No more, maybe. I don't know. Shingo, maybe it's take advantage. Oh, go ahead. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
My name is Magda Hovanesyan. I am from the Ministry of Economy of Republic of Armenia. Mr. Bob, my question is for you. You have provided quite interesting and applicable information for us. I opened the food security portal, and there is many analyses for different countries. So my question, how are the countries selected for analysis? Because Armenia was not there as an Asian country, and is the information missing for the analysis, or the countries are chosen arbitrarily? Thank you.
Thank you. Rob, you want to dedicate or you want to wrap by yourself?
I can start and maybe others can jump in, but more or less not sure whether it refers to the selection of countries that came out from the vulnerability index. So that was just looking at which countries had the highest vulnerability index in the case of Asia to the rice price shock, right? So it depends on the degree of vulnerability in this case, which countries we take out, we select. Also for further analysis as appropriate, right? So So not a matter of selecting countries randomly, but we just look at, in this case, vulnerabilities, where the vulnerabilities lie. I think for also a country like Armenia is included in the overall database. It may happen that in some countries we lack information, but I don't think that's the case for the vulnerability index. So Armenia is also there, but it's not a country that is the highest in the Asian region that's highest vulnerable to the rise to any rice price shock that we see in markets. So not sure whether that answers the question, or want to come back in.
I think. Anybody else, you guys on the panel, you want to jump in? This is a very tough question. No? Okay, go ahead.
I just want to also ask that if the, the country colleagues, our member country want to participate in this kind of exercise, is there any way to, the interested countries can be a part of this exercise? So.
Yeah. Rob, you got this question, right? Yeah.
So if that relates to the country dashboards, we're open to develop that for any country. Of course, it would require a little bit of resources to put it together, like in the case of Nepal, there was a group of partners that came together to prepare that. But we do have the platform and the templates to fairly quickly put that together. So then it a little bit depends on the amount of work that would go into that. Is what features would one like to present there predominantly. But may also, Suno, you can say a little bit more how the Nepal dashboard was developed and the amount of effort that went into it. But as I mentioned, so if there's specific interest from countries to develop such pages that could be partly sort of extracts from the Asian Pacific portal, or also add more specific sets of indicators and analytical tools that can be developed, and then we can use the same platform to visualize that and make that accessible to everyone. But over to you, Suna, you may want to say a little bit more about it.
Sure. In the Nepal food security dashboard, we got funded from the USAID, and then we have a local partner, ISDS in Nepal, and then we have a CGIAR center like a CIMIT, and also we have a Nepal local researchers inside the city centers. The good of this one is that we have a big group of people to discuss together, not only CGR researchers or funder, but also include the government people. And then we trying to use the local data, not from the other organization outside. We contact to Nepal individual local partners or government to get some data from them. And then the other things we do is that now we almost finished to develop the Nepal dashboard, and after that we're going to be hand over this whole thing to local government, local NGO called IIDS, and then they're going to be maintain the entire dashboard, and they're going to be improve the dashboard again. And then we also provide the capacity building to that organization to keep this dashboard up. So that is kind of the good practice we include all the local partner and then the government in Nepal to make a good usage of this Nepal dashboard.
Thank you. Any more questions? Going once, going twice. Guys, no more? Shingo, maybe I'll put you on the spot. I know you are the Chief Operating Officer. Now, this is really the last session. You want to say a few words at all? Or no? Okay. Yeah. Oh, Qinfeng is here. Qinfeng, you want to say something? This is really the last session.
No, I don't say anything.
Okay. So everybody online, everybody here, you should own Qinfeng and Shingo and me a beer, because I give you right. Supposedly end 5:30. Give you 15 minutes, right? I know it's your weekend. You'll give you 15 minutes. So next time you saw them, just offer them a beer. Thank you guys so much. I think this is really nice. I know it's give us a press. Yeah, thank my my colleagues really at 4 o'clock in the morning and enjoy the week. I know it's very tight weekend, but I think it's wonderful. It's one of the the best conference I attended because it's not just academic, a lot of the practical things. Thank you so much. This is the guy behind. Yeah. Thank you.